Yes, there's the right button. There's the intro. All right, here we go. In 5, 4, 3.
Like a gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for January 23, 2025. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, EA underperformed and it's pinning the blame on Dragon Age and soccer. And Insomniac has a new boss that also won't tell us anything about Wolverine. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Mat Piscatella. Matt, how are you doing?
What? Hello, Jeff Grubb. Hello, chat. This is a lot of fun. I'm very excited.
Yeah, glad to have you here. Analyst from Circana Group, right? I'm still not used to it. Have you gotten used to it?
No, and everyone still says the NPD group, which, you know, technically I'm supposed to get smacked if I say it, so I won't. But yeah, we merged with IRI a couple of years ago, and now we are Circana, the super research company.
Yep, there it is. All right. So yeah, whenever we do those reports about, hey, an analyst is saying this how many games sold in the United States, Matt does all that work, has all the spreadsheets, gives us all those little fun tidbits to talk about. Also, you know, occasional insights into other things happening in the market as well. Always appreciate it when we can talk about any of the stuff you offer us, Matt. But very excited to have you on the show. This is awesome. Anything you would think people should know about yourselves before we get started?
Yeah, very quick rundown. Been doing this about 7 years. Prior to doing this, I spent about 15 years in publishing. Started at Activision Publishing at the time, way back in 2005. Left publishing as the vice president of sales planning at Warner Brothers Games right around 2017. So spent a long time. Did everything touching numbers from trade marketing to demand planning to business intelligence, everything greenlight forecast, modeling. If you ever said, hey, they dropped the price of a game by whatever, or hey, they put that game on sale, I was they for a very long time. So
when people would say, don't they like money? Were you the one that they were like probably talking about that, like, he was deciding whether or not they like that money or not?
Yeah, you know what, publishers, it turns out they like money a lot.
Yeah, fair enough. Excellent. So Matt, I think, God, we've only met a couple times in person, but I did meet you with like the one time I remember for sure was at a PlayStation like mixer, and that was a good time. They had some good food and drinks there. When you do get out to industry events, like what part of the industry are you normally mingling with? Are you going to meetings with executives, or is it just like, you know, you're free to go roam the show floor at a summer games fest?
Usually it's at publishing events or retailer events. So
Right.
I'm always talking with folks about where the business is going, what games are coming out, what's happening with consumer trends, everything from specific behavior to what might be happening in credit card debt or income levels or employment, like everything about what might impact this market I get to chat about, and it's a lot of fun.
Excellent. All right, well, we do have a lot to get into, so we should probably explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings, or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with EA does, in fact, blame underperformance of Dragon Age and EA Football Club 25 as it lowers forecast. This is from Andy Robinson at VGC. Electronic Arts has lowered its revenue forecast for its current business year, partly due to what it called the underperformance of FC25 and Dragon Age the Veilguard. EA's initial guidance for its current fiscal year ending March 31st anticipated mid-single-digit growth from its live service games, including Football Club 25. However, the company warned the market on Wednesday that it now expects a mid-single-digit decline, with an FC25 slowdown during the Christmas period accounting for the majority of that change. Separately, EA said on Wednesday that Dragon Age: The Veilguard, released in October, engaged in quotes is how they put it, around 1.5 million players during the 3 months ended December 31st, 2024, which it said was at nearly half of its expectations. EA now expects net bookings of around 2.21 billion for its third quarter and an updated range of 7 to 7.15 billion for the fiscal year. That is down from 7.5 to 7.8 billion that they were expecting originally. During Q3, we continue to deliver high-quality games and experiences across our portfolio. However, Dragon Age and EA Sports FC25 underperformed our net bookings expectations, said EA CEO Andrew Wilson. He does go on here. I'm going to read this quote and then we'll start discussing it. This month, our teams delivered a comprehensive gameplay refresh in addition to our annual Team of the Year update in FC25. Positive player feedback and early results are encouraging. We remain confident in our long-term strategy and expect a return to growth in fiscal year 26 as we execute against our pipeline. Matt, I want to ask you, what does it mean when a CEO says they want to execute against their pipeline?
In essence, it means that they have a lot of plans in place that they expect to perform above where the current situation is. So there's a lot in the hopper that might come down, but of course, the best laid plans always come out in the wash, and consumers always have the ultimate final say. But yeah, that just means that they've got stuff in store, but of course, they're not going to tell you what that stuff is quite yet.
Yeah. Let's start with Football Club. That one is just going to sort of wax and wane as interest in the game. It's probably hard to put the finger on the pulse of something like that. There's so many people playing it at any one time. They're always making constant changes to the game, always trying to add new stuff. Like making a change and then suddenly there's a fewer people playing or spending money than expected. It's hard to say if that's because they're less happy with the game or they're just spending time doing something else, right? It's got to be difficult to sort of measure something like that.
It is, and this is really where the crux of the miss probably lies. Live services for EA is the biggest deal.
Yes.
Far bigger than any individual game or full game that you would sell. So this is probably where the bulk of this is coming from. And look, when you're talking about EAFC, it's a live service game. It's one of the live service games competing with all of the other sports games and all of the other live service games in the market, right? So it's even up against like a Marvel Rivals or a Fortnite or even a Roblox for that time. And time is really the most important bit. So, that's what it really matters is how the players are engaging with the title and monetizing. And that will be subject to what else is going on in the market, both within gaming and externally as well.
Yeah. And it's, not just the games, right? It's always, hey, people are spending more time on TikTok. So that is also taking away from a live service game. It's something that seems to be happening more frequently as these companies recognizing that they're competing outside of games. But you're right. FC25, very likely the bulk of this. That is their breadwinner for the most part, and that doesn't mean they haven't looked for growth elsewhere. They were like, okay, we will separate EA Sports from sort of EA Publishing, let EA Sports do its thing, and then EA Publishing can focus on stuff like Dragon Age: The Veilguard. I'm sure their expectations were higher for that game than it actually performed. It seems like it's another one of these big games that, while fine in many regards, just slightly missed the mark, and consumers, I don't know, seems like they punished it for that. Punished as much as, we're not going to spend our time on that is a punishment.
Yeah, and it's been a challenge with most single player games, even the hits this year. They come in for a month or two and then they fade away as people fall back into like their live service or other comfort games. And it's kind of something we're seeing not just in gaming, but across the board, this like turtling in towards comfort. Like, when you turn on TV, if you have TV, when you turn it on or you turn on a streaming service, what does it feed you? It feeds you Friends or The Office, right? These comfort shows. It's similar to what we're seeing in games right now, where people are continuing to fall back, whether they're playing Madden or they're playing Fortnite. Like they're falling back into these comfort games rather than really taking big risks or trying new things or spending big dollars for a game that they may or may not end up liking. And it's a real challenge. And you're seeing that every single month in this market, where these big new single player games, even the hits, they don't stick around too long.
Do you, when you do talk to companies and when you're looking at the data, do you get the sense that the state of things as it is now, with the black hole games taking up so much people's time and energy and money, is just how it has to be going forward forever? Or is it a trend that will eventually break and create space for another new innovation, whether that is a game design innovation or a game business innovation?
Yeah, one of those two things has to happen. If I knew which of those two things were going to work, I'd be out doing that rather than
Of course.
looking at sales numbers, right? I'd be out making that game or making that innovation. But it has to happen. But when you look at this market, if you look at something like Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which is the best-selling game of the year in the US this year, the franchise itself has been the number one selling franchise in the US for 16 straight years. And that, Call of Duty really was one of those games that really started this live service revolution. How do you get people out of something like a Fortnite or a Roblox or a Grand Theft Auto when they've spent so much time and put so many dollars and have built not only like a relationship with the game, but a relationship with other people that play the game? Like, these are people's social hubs, especially in this world, right? People really fall back into those comfort areas. How do you encourage people to leave that, try new things? And I mean, that's just been one of the biggest challenges in the market today.
Yeah, and I mean, as someone who has been playing games a long time and enjoys live service games, definitely gets into them occasionally. Not like I once did. Like, I was once very much into Call of Duty and was playing 1,000 hours per copy of those games. Like, everything put out one a year, I'd play another 1,000 hours. I'm not that way anymore. I definitely am like kind of looking for the game I could spend some time with, have an adventure with, and move on. Part of me is accepting that the industry is I feel like the industry is putting me a little bit on an ice floe and sending me out to sea and being like, we don't really need you anymore. And then I'm like, okay, well, there's plenty of indie games for me to take up my time, and I will focus on them. But I mean, is that a feeling that is reasonable, that the AAA publishers are not necessarily interested in the kinds of things that I'm interested in anymore?
Well, there's really a fragmentation going on in the player base. Like, everyone watching this stream, every member of Giant Bomb, you'd be very much into that core enthusiast community of people that really want to know and love video games as they've always been. New adventures, new ways of playing, new things to do. This is a small but very important, incredibly important portion of the market. But when you look at the market as a whole, what we're seeing is a big presence of people that will just play mobile. 50% of content spending on video game products this year came from mobile. We also have a really big portion of the market, which we call easy accessors and transitionals. And what that means in terms of gamer segmentation, or basically looking at the psychographic profiles of who's playing games. These are people that'll play things that are easily accessible, like they have their Chromebook or some other type of PC that they already have. What can I play on it? What can I play on my mobile device that I can jump into for free or just kind of mess around? And transitionals, people who, used to be more of the core audience that now, because they have jobs and kids and everything else, are transitioning away. So that traditional core gaming audience that was basically the gaming audience, say in the early 2000s, it's really changed. Gaming has broadened in so many ways. But what that means is that there are different needs for being met for different groups of people. And those other groups of people, while they're not spending as much time or money as, say, the core group, there's so many of them that it kind of makes up for it. So, back in the day, the only way to play a video game was to buy a console, buy a disc game, and put it in the console and play it, or a PC. But now there are so many ways to play, so many ways to engage with content that publishers are really having to pick and choose where they allocate their resources. And they're going to go to where the biggest return is going to lie. Until that changes, like, this is just kind of what we're probably going to see for a while, which a very long-winded way of saying, yeah,
No, perfect. Yes, that it represents how I'm feeling about all of it. And then I just think about the culture war stuff and entitledness and the finickiness of gamers. We're fickle. The core audience, I'm specifically talking about the broader audience, does seem to be like, oh, a Monopoly game? Okay, yeah, we'll play that. And I'm sure there's plenty of drama within the Facebook page of Monopoly Go. I'm sure that exists, absolutely. But it doesn't seem to come from the same place of entitlement that we seem to be dealing with in gaming, where it's like, these publishers, don't they know that we pay their bills? So shouldn't they be listening to us? And we're mad about this. And it's got to get exhausting. You said they will go where the biggest return is. And it's like, well, we're not the biggest return. And we're also kind of annoying to deal with. At a certain point, it has to break them, where it's like, why did we spend all this time trying to get Dragon Age, the Veilguard, right for these people? They were never going to be happy with it in the first place. Maybe we would have, but that's how it has to feel at this moment, right?
Well, it's high risk, right? Not only do you have to deliver a great game, and however you want to define what makes a great game, it's up to whether it's a high Metacritic score or whatever way you personally think that is. You have to not only deliver a great game, but every single point of your messaging has to be perfect. And like, for example, back in the day, Assassin's Creed came out, and that image, the screenshot came out of the character whose face disappeared and all there were floating eyeballs, right? One screenshot like that comes out, and all of a sudden you're really fighting just to get the game's message across, right? And you're mentioning a couple of those points we've seen in recent months, where one small thing can kind of blow up into a much bigger thing, and really make your life difficult to try to bring a game to market. Even if it's a great game, you're already up against the messaging, you're up against the social media aspect of it. And yeah, it's very, very tough. And there is a lot of potential reward for making those kind of games, but they come with a lot of risk as well. And that's kind of the balance you're trying to do.
Right. All right. Let's move on from EA. Plenty of other things to talk about. Let's get into Celeste devs cancel next game after falling out and difficult development. This comes from Ethan Gotch at Kotaku. Earthblade was going to be the next game from the creators behind 2D pixel art action hits Towerfall and Celeste, but on Wednesday, designer Maddie Thorson announced the project was quietly canceled last month after a fallout between some of the team's members and the realization that the game's protracted development had become a real slog. The quote here from them is, "For us, on the inside, we've had some time to process, grieve, and work toward accepting this." They made the decision in December, I believe. "Although this process is non-linear and still ongoing," Thorson wrote. "For those only reading this now who might be emotionally invested in this project, we're sorry to disappoint you." Earthblade was announced by indie team Extremely OK Games back in 2021 and revealed its first gameplay trailer at the Game Awards in 2022. Originally set to come out as early as 2023, development didn't progress as quickly as the team had expected. A planned 2024 launch was eventually delayed as well. In the cancellation announcement today, Thorson writes of a falling out with pixel artist Pedro Medeiros, whose visual style defined the aesthetic of the upcoming project, over a dispute related to IP rights for Celeste, the beloved 2018 Game of the Year contender. "We eventually reached a resolution, but both parties also agreed in the end that we should go our separate ways," Earthblade's director wrote. "Pedro is now working on his game, Neverway, which you should check out. We've played it, and it's very promising." This is human drama is in every sort of corporation and small team, big team, little team, across any sort of creative endeavor. That doesn't mean it's not a shame that this happened. I really, really love Celeste, Matt. Not surprising though, when something like a legal dispute breaks up a small team, going to be hard to see through that next game, right?
Yeah, I mean, any video game getting made is a bit of a miracle in itself. And these types of things happen quite a bit, whether in small teams or big teams. Usually they don't come out to the public quite like this. But these kind of conflicts are happening all the time. And yeah, it's a real shame. And I feel bad for everyone involved. Like, it's not a good scene when you have that kind of conflict. And it's a real shame that it's going to impact this game as well as the people involved.
Yeah. I think Maddie, a lot of the people involved have said they are reassessing, and the plan now is to kind of work on smaller games. And I to me, I'm like, yeah, if you are an indie developer, I think that is where your head should be at right now. I read in this message from Maddie that they were saying one of the problems with Earthblade is it got so ambitious, and after the success of Celeste, they wanted to do something bigger and better. And my reaction to that is please don't feel that way. That is not actually what we want from you, is to feel like you have to one-up yourself every time as a small indie team. We kind of just are happy that you made that game, and if you want to make more of that game, go back and just keep making Stardew Valley. You want to put Haunted Chocolatier to the side over there at the ape, I can't remember the name of the developer, and it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, go back, keep working on Stardew. If you want to spend 10 years making a Stardew 2 that's a lot like Stardew 1, we will also probably be pretty happy with that. The idea that you have to like kind of get into this ever increasing growth on the indie side of things is probably causing a lot of undue stress for a lot of these teams. So I mean, you know, I don't know. Again, maybe the economics does make it so they do have to grow each time, but I don't know. Is that the case, Matt?
I mean, it really depends on the state of their financial backing, what the expectations are of any investors they might have. But this is a problem that it has impacted so many teams. You look at any franchise, take a look at something like Arkham, right? Arkham Asylum comes out. It's a kind of a Metroidvania. It's a 10-hour experience. City gets bigger. It's open world. Night gets even bigger. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, the sales can't sustain the additional cost, the additional time. Looking at an indie studio like this, it's the same, but just in a smaller scale, where the feeling that you kind of always have to be getting bigger, doing more. We made X on this small game. If we made a big game, we could make Y. How do we do that? And like, that's the trap, right? If you're really good at what you do, keep doing it until it doesn't work anymore. It's lower risk. Sure, the potential upside might not be as high, but you're more likely to reach it. But yeah, it's different in every case, but it's a trap that we see so many developers and publishers fall into.
Yeah, I think I remember there was a period there on the Sci-Fi Channel in the early 2000s. They were just doing Planet of the Apes marathons all the time, and they started having like little documentaries on there, and there was talk about how the producers were just like looking at the line, or like the last one made this much and it cost this much, and the second one made less but it cost less, and we're just going to keep doing that. And they ended up making 5 of those things over the course of a decade or so, and that's a decade where a lot of people were employed to make some pretty fun movies for a very long time. And it's like, yeah, more of that. Let's do more of that. And again, I get that publicly traded companies, they feel like they just do not have that as an option, but you're an indie studio. You should hear us when we say we want you to keep doing the thing you're very good at, and don't feel like you got to come back with. I mean, Earthblade looked fantastic, Matt. It really did. The promises there were enticing, but they were promises that were causing problems at the studio because they felt like we weren't. This was a slog to work on, in their words. So yeah, I feel like try to avoid this trap where possible. All right.
Yeah, it's important. I think the one other piece on that is that when you make a great game as a developer, or you publish a great game as a publisher, you always think like, well, if we had more time or more dollars, we could have made it even better, right? And so you're always having this thought about how can we do bigger and better? And this is the game I always wanted to make. And it turns out that it doesn't really resonate with an audience as much as the first game did. Yeah, it's like any video game getting made is a miracle.
Yep, absolutely, every time. Yep, yeah, and it's kind of no avoiding some of these traps, no matter which direction you go. All right, let's see here. Wolverine dev refuses to comment on 2025 release date, acknowledges pent-up demand. This comes from Eddie McHugh at GameSpot. This is, of course, a follow-up. We talked yesterday. It happened live during the show that Ted Price, longtime CEO, head of Insomniac Games, is retiring. Too handsome to work in games anymore. Always felt that way for him. He is going to be stepping down fully in March. They have some other people stepping into his position, and some of them have begun talking. One of the new Insomniac bosses, Chad Dizern, told Variety that the studio would love to talk more about Wolverine, but it can't yet. We have to be like Logan today and remain very stoic until it's time to pop the claws down the road, he said. As much as we have pent-up excitement, we have to hold on to that. So that's about as much as we could say about our upcoming projects today. Zern also refused to confirm or deny if the new Wolverine game will release in 2025. This seems to go back a little bit to the message of like they have to be so careful with everything they say, right? That the video game development's not linear, and then any one wrong thing can cause major problems for everybody involved, or major headaches that they feel that and fires that they feel that they have to put out. But yeah, I mean, Insomniac has been on a breakneck pace with delivering these games, and it feels like Wolverine could be something that does pop up this year. You feel like that's possible?
I mean, it could. It's if it didn't, I wouldn't be surprised. I have no idea either way.
Yeah.
What a hell of a run for him and that team.
Oh yeah.
What they've been able to accomplish, the consistency of the studio with him there has been remarkable. What they've been able to accomplish. So, I mean, if you have faith in any studio, that's a studio to have faith in, even with a leadership transition. But yeah, it's. In this market at this time with the scale of development we're talking about, like, when a game comes out, it's when it's able to come out, or it comes out when the budget runs out either way. But fortunately, they seem to have no problem making sure that they have the budget they need. So hopefully it all comes out great.
So one thing I have noticed over the last several years, a lot of people in chat and the audience have noticed this as well, is the shrinking time that marketing takes from like, okay, well, the game gets announced maybe a long time ago, but when we're really going to start pushing this game in a marketing way, begins 2, 3, 4 months maybe before a game is actually coming out. What led to that?
So you have a number of factors. Now, you're talking about an attention span that's gotten a little bit narrower. With the shift towards more of a digital first strategy, you don't need the long lead ups that you used to need to have with physical retail, doing physical pre-orders. Of course, we don't have E3 anymore, where that used to be a big touch point for these kind of marketing events. We do have Summer Games Fest, but it's not the same when it comes to this kind of thing. And we have the development budgets that have gotten so big, continue to grow against a console market that has not grown at the same rate, right? So you're looking for areas to have some savings, and you're trying to thread the needle, make sure that your marketing is done at the right spend in the right places at the right time to generate the best impact. Now, no one has the formula to perfect a marketing plan, and what marketing plan might work for one game won't work for another. And unfortunately, marketing is one of those areas that is first looked to if some additional funds need to be recovered for something like additional production time or other factors. I don't know what the case is in this particular case, or what might be happening with this game, but generally, what you're finding is leaner, meaner, and trying to hit harder where the folks that might play your game are in a shorter time frame. Is it working as well as it used to? I don't know. Some cases it will, some cases it won't. Yeah. But if you look at some of the biggest hits this year, right? Helldivers 2, Power World, no one knew they were coming out, and then they come out in the biggest games in the world for a while. So who the hell knows? Right.
That's probably what a big part of it is, like, who the hell knows? And when we look at it, when we do try to have a shorter time frame that we spend on marketing, we kind of can't tell the difference. It seems like the game did just as fine, or maybe even better than it would have done. It's again, hard to measure. So they are probably just like, if we could save the money, why not? Right.
In some cases, yeah, every game that comes out has different things hitting it, impacting it,
of course,
before launch, and all kinds of decisions are made for all kinds of reasons.
Fair enough. All right, let's see. Actually, you know what? Let's take a quick break. We'll get right back into it. We have news about the Power World developers becoming publishers, and maybe Nintendo share prices at an all-time high. We'll talk about that right after this. All right, we are right back into it. As promised, Power World's developer is entering publishing, and its first game is from Tales of Kyncera team Surgent. This is from Jordan Midler at VGC. Tales of Kyncera developer Surgent Studios has announced they will partner with Power World publisher Pocketpair for its next project, which will be a short horror game. The project won't be set in the Tales of Kenzera universe and won't be related to Project Uso, the in-development title that studio boss Abu Bakr Salim showed off to VGC last year. The new horror game is set to be released later this year. The game will be the first title published by Pocketpair Publishing, a new label from the Palworld developers. Both Surgent and Pocketpair are well versed in taking risks, said Abu Bakr Salim, CEO of Surgent Studios. We noticed a pattern in the entertainment industry, and Pocketpair has given us the opportunity to make a horror game about it. It will be short and weird, and we think players will be interested in what we have to say. Let's talk about this first from Salim's point of view and the folks over there at Surgent Studios. I played through Tales of Kenzera Zao, really liked it. Really thought it was a very solid Metroidvania game that actually gave me a little bit of a gut punch with its storytelling and its themes of loss and dealing with loss. Very well done. And then I look up from enjoying a game and seeing a bunch of people, again, culture war stuff taking it, because it was a game about black people made by black people, and it was attacked by racists. I was worried this would scare off Abu Bakr Salim, and he'd be like, why am I dealing with these people? Why am I trying to make things for them? But he's still here, and he's popping up, having conversation. We had him on our countdown to the Game Awards and things like that. He's ready to continue making games, and now he's got a partner in Pocketpair to keep doing exactly that. I find that pretty inspiring. I'm happy to see that. How about you?
Oh, absolutely. And seeing people continue their creative vision with this kind of challenge is super inspiring, and I hope all the best for them and the team. You hate seeing what I hate seeing what we're seeing through some parts of gaming community in recent months, and in the country at large for that matter. And I sure hope this is a huge success for them.
Yep, exactly. Same. As far as Pocketpair goes, this move has happened frequently. We see a developer get into publishing. What's usually the thinking there? Is it just we've built up these tools and these resources and these teams inside of our company to help us publish our game, and it kind of we can kind of only make that make sense if we start publishing other people's games, or is it like we can make a lot more money if we start publishing other people's games?
I mean, when it comes to smaller teams like this, I don't know particularly about the motivations of the Palworld folks here, but when these kind of things happens, usually it's hey, we want to help fellow developers out and really help get a game out and use the knowledge that we've acquired to not only help them, but also, find some return on that. Generally, these come from a very good place. When smaller groups start publishing, it doesn't always work out. And I hope that's the case here. It seems like it could be, which would be great. But I don't know for sure. But yeah, take the expertise you achieved in putting out a hit game and build on that, and that's great. Yep,
absolutely. Yeah, and it's like it seems like it makes a lot of sense. Seems like it has worked pretty frequently. I mean, going back to Team 17, who we're not gonna. That story's not one of the headlines. But Team 17, the group changed their name to like Everplay Group or something like that. But Team 17 Publishing is staying Team 17 Publishing. But they made Worms forever ago, and then they're like, let's get into publishing. And they've been doing that ever since, while still making like Worms games here or there, making a few games themselves here or there. And yeah, it really, I mean, even like to a certain extent, Valve being like, hey, we're a developer, and then we built these tools to help other developers, and that kind of just takes over, becomes Steam, takes over the world. At a certain point, it feels kind of like a natural evolution of someone learning this business and being like, we have to share what we've learned and make it easier for other people to do the same thing. That does feel like what this always is. People will point out Pocketpair, that there's some concerns there. The CEO or one of the heads there very into AI and generative AI. I'm sure that's the case, and I'm sure that's something that probably is coming up in conversations, or at least I would imagine it is. But that they're not alone in that, right? That's got to be across the industry right now. A bunch of publishers are having those same conversations, right?
Oh yeah, everyone's going to try to look for an edge, try to look for a way to cut costs, whether it works or not. It's very much open to debate. What we've seen so far is certainly not super convincing that an audience will react positively to that kind of content. We'll have to see how things develop. But of course, people are going to look into every possible way of gaining an edge when you're putting games out. So it's not a surprise, and we'll have to see how it goes.
Excellent. All right, let's talk about Nintendo. Nintendo share prices have reached an all-time high 1 week after Switch 2 reveal. This is from Jim Norman at Nintendo Life. It was all doom and gloom last week as Nintendo's share price took a slight tumble immediately after the long-awaited Switch 2 reveal. But every once in a while, these things will hit a rebound. Big N has bounced back in style, temporarily hitting the company's highest recorded share price since listings began. And then Jim writes here, Mamma Mia. As flagged by Automaton, Nintendo stock temporarily rose to a tasty 9,775 Japanese yen on January 23rd, setting a new all-time high for the company and reportedly beating the previous record by 371 yen. These things that they happen because at the whims of investors, they see something new and shiny. They're like, all right, we'll build in the expectations now. And then I think in my head, it's like, well, this means, as they build in the expectations, any sort of stumble here from here on out is really going to ding this share price. What does Nintendo need to do, or what can they do to sort of ensure that they can maintain this and keep investors happy and then still see some growth going forward?
Well, one of the things I'm very glad to do is not look at stock stuff too much, because what you're seeing in those markets and what's actually happening in the real world in terms of consumer don't always align.
Yes, the stock market is the imagination of investors a lot of times, right? And that's a weird, dirty place you don't want to be.
I don't want to be there in particular,
Yep.
but what Nintendo has to do is what they've always done, which is focus on Nintendo. They kind of operate in their own vertical. Sure, there is some competition between what they're doing and something like a PlayStation or a PC. Like, you're always competing for time. But in terms of what they do, they kind of do what they do, and no one else does quite what they do. And they move at their own pace, and they come with their own decisions, and they come with their own innovations. So they just have to keep doing what they've been doing. They've been very successful for a very long time. I anticipate them to continue to be that way, even if I can't always predict what the hell they're going to do, because no analyst ever got rich correctly predicting what Nintendo will do, and I ain't going to be the first.
Yep.
But yeah, as long as they keep focusing on what they do, they'll be fine.
Yeah, it does. I've gotten the sense that Nintendo is one of the few companies that can sort of dictate to its investors what they should be expecting from Nintendo, where a lot of other companies, at least in the gaming space, the places I pay attention to, seem a little bit like they are afraid of their investors and shy away from building their own identity because they have to have these meet these expectations of people that control the stocks. Is that one of the strengths of Nintendo, is that they kind of can ignore the concerns and anxieties of the people invested in them?
Well, they certainly don't ignore them, but they react to them in their own type of way.
Right. Okay.
And they've built that credibility over decades. Even when they stumble, they come out of it the other side with something amazing, right? Or something that performs exceptionally well. Until they stop doing that, they'll have the reign and the license to continue to being what they are and what they do. And hopefully that stays the case for a very long time.
When we were dealing with seeing like the sort of dip in video game sales and a lot of layoffs through 2024, one of the things that people were saying was like, let's wait for Switch 2, let's wait for GTA 6, see what happens then. Coming out of the Switch 2 reveal, do you feel like that is going to be a fertile ground for enabling a lot of developers and publishers to find some newfound success?
Sure hope so. I mean, Nintendo hardware is made primarily to play Nintendo content, but there could be significant opportunity for third parties on a Nintendo platform. We'll have to see exactly who's there on day one. But yeah, 25 is all about Switch 2. It's all about Grand Theft Auto 6. If both of them show up next year, if both of them are what people expect them to be, we're looking at, low to mid single digit growth for an industry that's really been struggling to get past those 2021 highs that were, of course, fueled by all those stay-at-home activities associated with the pandemic. So we had a market that had been growing for decades, all of a sudden reach a peak in 21. And while, the market's basically been stable since then, a stable video game market isn't what investors expect or are accustomed to. So if we can start getting back to some growth, it would be a very good thing. And for better or worse, all of the eggs are in those two baskets when it comes to Switch 2 and Grand Theft Auto 6.
How did 2024 end up? Like, I think you were expecting a little bit of a decline. Instead, it was stable, but that is still not good enough. Like, the industry is not built to not grow.
Right. So what we saw, we just published results this morning. Total spending for the U.S. for the year was down about 1.1%, which on its face, you're like, that's not that bad. Why the heck is so much chaos happening with a decline of only 1.1%? Well, that drop was really helped by the mobile side of things, which, mobile from our friends over at Sensor Tower, who we partner with to track the mobile space, really outperformed expectations, really helped by Monopoly Go. On the console side, it was a really tough year. Console hardware sales in terms of spending was down 25%. Of course, that was a little bit expected. Switch is, getting up there in age.
Switch, right?
Yeah, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series are both over their cyclical sales peaks. We're on the downside of their curves. So hardware was expected. Console content was also down double digits in terms of percentage. And, we had a lighter slate. We have the aging devices. So when you look at the total market, you're like down 1, that's fine. Well, it's because we saw some shifting around of dollars towards the mobile side, more towards PC. We had a little growth in non-mobile subscription spending, helped by Call of Duty on Game Pass. But in general, console content had a really tough year. So if we get Grand Theft Auto 6 and we get into Switch 2, all of a sudden that starts turning around next year or this year. Hopefully that becomes more appealing to investment. We start getting more studios funded and we start kind of reversing these really negative trends we've seen over the last couple of years. And that'll be a really big deal if it can happen this year.
You mentioned the console sales peak. Is this normally when the consoles peak in terms of the trend, or did it happen maybe a little bit sooner because so many people rushed to get consoles during the pandemic? I was trying to map that out in my head. Was it sooner than normal, or is it about 4-ish years in, we get on the other side of that bell curve?
Yeah, it's pretty normal. In terms of, now, what's not normal is the size of the decline this year compared to last year.
Okay.
For PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, we're a little bit heavier than I thought we should be, but you have to take into account the chaos of the first couple of years of this generation, not having any units for a couple of years. Then all of a sudden we had all the units, big increases, big drops based on supply because of how crazy that was. But generally, now we're kind of settled into where we should be. And the question is, how do these two boxes kind of ride out the rest of this gen into PS6? And if there's another Xbox, who the hell knows? Or what they decide to do with that product. It's what happens with the next couple of years. Now, Grand Theft Auto 6 could significantly impact that in a number of ways, right? Yes. And that's what everyone's kind of sitting on. And you never want to put all the eggs in one basket, but here we are.
Yeah, but at a certain point, what choice do you have? Yeah, let's we just really need that one basket super bad right now. Okay, so everyone is waiting for that. We'll a couple more stories. We'll get to them here in a second, but just the last question on this. GTA 6 does come out, and it's everything everyone hopes it will be. It does bump up the console sales. Is there really an expected sort of reverberation for everyone else to get a sales bump, or is this another one of those games that takes all the oxygen out of the room?
I mean, it's sure not going to help the live service issue or the challenge that the games are facing, but what it could do is bring investors back in to start funding other games. If we have more interest on the console side, we have more people playing for more hours, and all of a sudden there's a reversal of some of the declines we've seen in the console side for the last year or two. Switch 2 would help that as well. Then all of a sudden, investors are looking to fund studios, fund development, and that would be a positive snowball effect that could help things. And the more games, the kind of games that will, appeal to a mass audience could significantly help, and that's kind of what the hope is.
Excellent. All right, let's get on back on track here. Nintendo bags GLAAD nomination for Paper Mario's trans representation. This comes from Ollie Reynolds at Nintendo Life. Nintendo has received a nomination for the upcoming 36th annual GLAAD Media Awards for its trans representation in 2024's Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, the Switch remake. And this comes via Eurogamer. The game, launched on the 23rd of May 2024, featured the inclusion of dialogue from the 2004 GameCube version that had originally been altered for its release in the West. Focused on Mario's ghost companion Vivian, the change effectively restored the character's trans identity. The Thousand-Year Door joins 9 other nominees in the Outstanding Video Game category alongside Blumhouse Games' wonderful horror title Fear the Spotlight, which explored the relationship between the title's 2 protagonists, Amy and Vivian, as well. This was one of those things where it's like people were very happy to see this. The character is beloved and is actually probably the best character in the game, regardless of any other feelings about this, but to have the trans storyline restored, something really nice to see. Also, especially from Nintendo, I remember Tomodachi Life coming out to 3DS in the United States, and globally actually it had the same problem, where it's like it's a game about character relationships, and you make all your Miis, and you set their genders, and you set their age, and if they are 2 adult men, they can't be in a relationship with one another. Not that kind of relationship. The game just does not enable that, does not empower that. And it's like, it empowers so much stuff. The fact that it didn't do that was noticeable. And Nintendo didn't have really great answers at the time, said, I guess we'll look and try to do better. And for them to just like kind of move through time, and the game pops back up from a GameCube game that had been altered originally, and they fixed this. It's just nice to see, refreshing to see. And it wasn't some lightning rod, because it was just well done, a good character, and no one cared. It was very nice to see. How do you feel about it?
I think it's great. I think any opportunity that you have to expand the scope of your potential audience is also great for the business. Allowing people to see themselves reflected in the media they're interacting with is always a good thing. And it's great to see this kind of positive recognition for something like that on top of the positive business aspects of it. So yeah, it's great. And the more representation, the better. And the bigger the funnel in terms of allowing people to engage in ways that they find positive and empowering is great.
Can I ask you, since you did work in publishing for so long, how aware are people inside of these companies of awards like this, and then like the big awards as well? Are they going for these things, or is it just like kind of, okay, nice, put it on the shelf, we got to get back to making money?
They're not going for them. They're so busy trying to make a game that they don't think about that. But
Right.
When this happens, it's a huge deal. Like people take a tremendous amount of pride in delivering a product that brings joy or that people really resonate with. Like, there's this feeling or this sentiment out there that, everyone in publishing are these suits that sit behind desks and they're just doing these hardcore math things to screw over people. And it couldn't be anything farther from the truth. Like, they're just people that generally love games too. And if a game is a hit, fantastic. If a game gets this kind of recognition, that's amazing. Like, and everyone takes a great deal of pride in it. These things are generally, put right up in the front of the office as soon as you walk in. Yeah, it's a big point of pride for folks. And so, yeah, it's a big deal.
Excellent. All right, time to get on to the Atom Boys news. Atom Boys launches Vibrato, is how I'm going to say it, like a vibrato. Vibrato consultancy to help manage big game problems. This comes from Dean Takahashi at GameSpeed, who did a very long, in-depth interview with Adam about the future and his company he's got here. But I did a shortened version here. Atom Boys, a gaming industry veteran, has launched Vibrato, an advisory company aimed at fostering a more collaborative, sustainable, and thriving gaming future. Boys' vision for Vibrato stemmed from conversations with a bunch of executives where he identified a need for a consultancy firm that addresses the industry's foundational changes and helps companies navigate these challenges. Hey, a consultancy firm is something that a lot of companies work with, is my understanding. Matt, what kind of what is a company usually looking for when they do go to a consultant?
I mean, great for Adam, by the way. I never
Yes.
really got the chance to meet him. I saw him at a PlayStation event back in the day. I don't know if you remember those. In Scottsdale, they had all the retailers come in.
Right.
I don't know if you ever heard about it. It was a good time.
I think they still do that, right? Do they do something?
No.
They do something like that, but it's not. Maybe it's not exactly that. Not for retailers. Maybe.
Nowhere near the scale.
Okay.
It was a good time, but that's another story. But great for them. Yeah. When this happens, you're generally looking for some guidance on how to react to situations that, say, your publishing leadership team might not have experience with, and someone like Adam has tremendous experience with. So yeah, you're bringing in folks to help give suggestions to think about. No consultant of any kind is rolling into a publisher. I mean, of any kind is rolling into a publisher and saying, you're going to do this.
No, of course not.
It does not happen. They come in, they say, hey, here's some things to think about. And you think about them, and then you make whatever decision you think is best. Like some of the stuff you read about what people think of consultancy firms is just absolutely wild. Anyways, but yeah, you're bringing someone in to give you some perspective that you don't have in the organization. But you take it or leave it, and that's fine. You're just looking for ways. You're trying to improve. You're trying to provide the best product you can, and so you're open to all ideas that can help do that.
Yeah, and it's the Dunning-Kruger of people who think they understand how this stuff works is always impressive to see. It's like, man, how can you even have this sort of imagination in your head? That is so incorrect. Attaboys, for people that might be wondering, Attaboys is the guy from that video where he's like, hey, how do you share games on the PS4? And he hands it to Shuhei Yoshida, and then the video ends. And then he's been at Iron Galaxy for a long time. He was co-CEO at Iron Galaxy for years and years, left them recently, and now he's doing this. He's also a former patient at the Midway Asylum, which was Midway's EA Big. And I'll never stop bringing up the Midway Asylum. But yeah, he worked on a bunch of like Midway sports games and stuff like that.
Taller than you think, too. He's a tall drink of water.
Tall drink of water, indeed. Exactly. Yes. He's got great stories from the time working at Midway when I think they were working on Blitz the League or something like that. And they had F the NFL written all over their office. And then someone from the NFL was coming in. So they had to like run around and tear all these things down. I'm like, oh, that's a good time.
Midway back in the day is one of those places I sure would have loved to have been able to visit.
Yes, same. I would love to get like some fly on the wall footage of what it was like at that place for sure. Chicago game developers, man. All right, last thing here. Reminder, Xbox Developer Direct is happening today at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern, about an hour, 65 minutes from now, if you are watching live. If you're watching later, and if you're watching live, we're gonna do a talk over. We're gonna talk over this event. There should be some pretty good announcements. Seems like it's gonna be pretty cool. Looking forward to it myself. So that'll be up on the website, up on streaming services, stuff like that. So definitely check out that and come hang out with us. So we got the Switch 2 reveal. They're promising more in April. Xbox has their developer direct happening. Going to set up kind of what's happening this year. PlayStation probably has something pretty soon. These companies they still have to like make these announcements, even though it does still seem like a lot of times people are waiting for GTA 6 to do what GTA 6 needs to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, we need some surprises this year when it comes to the market. There's always a few that pop up out of nowhere or seemingly nowhere. I can't believe they announced 1 versus 100s coming back at Xbox. I don't know if that's true, but I'm just going to put that out there in the universe and hope it manifests. But yeah, like we're going to have some surprise hits. We're going to have some surprise failures. Like this is just kind of what happens, and this is all just part of the wonderful river of gaming. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yep, it rushes ahead without us, whether we wanted to or not. Yeah, I had 1 versus 100. At one point, I heard it was in development, but it was at a team that has since been sort of disbanded. So I don't know. Yeah. Oh no! Oh, he's throwing his desk out the window. Everybody, stand back. All right. Poll question from yesterday. We got it right here. Let me get this set up. There we go. News assets. Move that over there. Okay. Have you ever spent more than $10 to buy a game on your mobile device? You know what? I think I bought one of those like Final Fantasies or Chrono Trigger at one point. I don't know if I ever played it. So I will say yes, and 32% of people said yes. 68% said no. This is the kind of thing where it's like, yes, some people it might be like me, where it's like years and years ago, I bought one game for that price, and then Super Mario Brothers Run, and I'm a Mario fan, and I didn't even buy that. So this got brought up, Matt, because of the reporting that when they look at the numbers, seems like Resident Evil 2 and all those Resident Evil games that got ported to iPhone didn't sell much more than 10,000 copies. And it's like, yeah, it just seems like that audience not interested in those games. Like what? Yeah, that's just, it's that simple, right? At a certain point, it's like they're happy with the games they have on their phone for free, right?
Yeah, mobile players want to play games designed for mobile devices. Console players want to play games designed for console devices. Like, it's not hard. Um, and these two things just don't mix. The way people play on mobile, how they play on mobile, what they want when they play on mobile is entirely different than what you would want to do to play like a really intense survival horror game. Like, come on, what are we doing here?
Yep. It's I just remember conversations and quotes from the past where people like, it's, you know, people have a device that's as powerful as a console in their pocket. So we got to make sure that these games will be on those devices if we want to keep getting games like this. And it's like, oh, that's not going to work. They just want games made for those devices. All right, let's see here. New poll question. We'll get to that here in a second. Before we do that, though, Mat Piscatella, why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet if you want them to find you on the internet, and what you have going on and all that other good stuff?
I am on the blue sky, Mat Piscatella with one T, because it was the 70s and my mom was drugged up and she forgot how to spell Matthew. So yeah, Mat Piscatella on blue sky. Don't yell at me about video game sales. I'm just trying to help you out. It's all good. But no, come hang out there and, you know, look for us every month. We're talking about the market and trying to give context and help people understand this wacky world. So yeah, really, really love everyone who follows me over there. Have great interactions. So yeah, come on out and hang out.
Yep, Matt's a great follow. Just good vibes and good information. So definitely go hang out and say nice things to him. All right, poll question for tomorrow's show. Do you think Insomniac's Wolverine releases in 2025? This one, I honestly don't know. So yeah, it could really go either way. I think I would be hopeful and vote yes. We'll see what everyone comes up with. But you can vote now if you go to youtube.com/@giantbomb. Go to that community tab right there. You know, vote, get the results on tomorrow's show here on Giant Bomb. Speaking of Giant Bomb, as I mentioned, the Xbox Developer Direct happening in about an hour. We'll talk over that later today. Voicemail dump truck, plenty of fun calls. Jan, if you haven't gathered up the calls yet, you might get a bunch about how many syllables are in the word oil and fire, and we're gonna have to deal with this. It's gonna be a problem. And Matt, how many syllables is in the word oil?
That'd be one syllable.
Yeah, there we go. So it's going to be a fun one. And let's see. Oh, tomorrow we will. I don't know. God, I don't know. Do we have stuff planned for tomorrow? People are mad. Matt, I say it with two, although I recognize the technicality of it being one. Oil is how I say it. And so I just feel like that's two.
Live your dream, brother. Don't let people tell you how to say oil.
That's the right,
oil.
That's the right answer, actually.
Two.
Never mind. We don't have to do any of these calls. Matt already answered it. Yeah. Anything else, Matt, before we get out of here?
No, this was really fun. A lifelong dream to hang out with you on this
Likewise.
thing. So really, really cool. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, talking about video games. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who is watching and listening. You are the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and oil. All